千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. This came from a book that was written quite a long time ago by William Paley back in 1802. So you can see there's a long history behind this idea, and the idea wasn't exactly new when he wrote about it. So let me paraphrase what he wrote. I'm pretty confident I can do it very accurately and convey exactly what he was trying to say. So William Paley expressed in his book that suppose I am walking around outside, and as I am walking, my foot is hitting against something. I look down and I see that I have pitched my foot against a stone, just a little rock. So someone else sees that I have kicked the stone by accident, asked, hey, how is it that the stone is there? Who put it there? Why is that stone in that exact place? And I might say, well, I don't know. I have no idea. For all that I was aware of, it might have been there, ever since I can remember. Might have been there indefinitely, might have been there forever. It might just be naturally occurring in that spot. So, people would accept that as the answer. That stone, that rock, might have always been there. But suppose it wasn't a stone or rock. Suppose that what I kicked was actually something that you see in this photo, a watch. Suppose I found a watch on the ground. And same question, hey, how did that watch get there? How did it happen to be in that place? So now, suddenly, I can't give the answer that I gave before. I can't say, for all I know, that watch has always been there. Just by looking at the watch, I can see, the precision engineering, the craftsmanship. I can tell that this is something artificial, that someone had made it, that the watchmaker exists. In order for the watch to exist, there must be a watchmaker. So every manifestation of design which exists in the watch. So to me, it's obvious that the presence of the watch implies the presence of the watchmaker. What William Paley is trying to say here is that if you look at a human being, if you look at the intricate details of biology, isn't it true that the intricacy, the complexity of the biological system is similar to the intricacy, the complexity that we can find in the mechanical workings of a pocket watch? So the human body is a marvel of engineering. Well, if that is the case, then when I find a watch, I know there is a watchmaker. Thus, when I see a human being, I see the watchmaker of the human, which is the creator, the designer of the human. Thus, there must be an intelligent designer behind the complexity of a human being. All the parts in the pocket watch fitting together, working together, adding up to a functional watch, similar to all the different biological parts in a human being, fitting together, working together, adding up to a functional human being. So the watch is made by someone. I know that for sure, even if I don't know who that is. By the same token, The human being must have been created by someone. I have the same certainty. The body must be the work of an intelligent designer. So there you go. You have basically the beginning arguments for intelligent design. So that's how it appears in theology. So this is more the Western mindset. Now I'm going to explain the Eastern mindset, which is a little bit different. The Eastern mindset is all about nature. Now, you may be wondering, the watchmaker analogy, that's pretty compelling. How can you come up with anything that's different? Wouldn't that be the proof of God that everyone's looking for? Right there, the watchmaker. Well, yes, many people find that compelling, no doubt about that. But in the Tao, it's our job to go deeper and to understand the nature of the argument a little bit more. So let me explain. Let's take a look at nature. In nature, we have seen many examples of astonishing creative complexity. So keep in mind that nature is Tao and Tao is nature. We'll come back to that point. For now, though, let me draw your attention to this image. This image, this photograph taken from nature, shows a moth that is very well camouflaged. So if I were just passing by, not paying a whole lot of attention, not scrutinizing everything, I would easily miss the presence of the moth in this picture because its coloring looks so incredibly matching that of its surrounding. Now, there are other camouflage found in nature that is even more astonishing. This is just one example. So, in nature, many examples we have seen of how the evolutionary process produces responses to the challenge of survival. And sometimes, as you can see, like in this case, it can be just really astonishing, the solutions that living things have evolved over time. And in these cases, we see small changes from one generation to the next, adding up to an incredible transformation. So evolution alone can be a pretty skillful watchmaker too. In other words, the intelligent designer need not be a deity. It can be evolutionary forces. This is the basic idea behind the book called The Blind Watchmaker by evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins from 1986. So in order to dispel the idea that complexity cannot arise without the intervention of a creator, Dawkins uses example of the eye. Now, you have eyes, I have eyes, so we all know what that is, and we know eyes are incredibly complex. So that complexity, how did it come about? Someone who is following the footsteps of William Paley would say that, well, you see, the eyes have irreducible complexity. That means there are parts in the eyes that must come together in exactly that way, that each part must already be functional or the whole thing falls flat. The whole thing doesn't work. And this is yet another way to prove that there is an intelligent designer that put it all together. The way that Richard Dawkins thought about it was more like that of a Tao sage, in that he sees a lot of this complexity, a lot of this work, a lot of this sort of intelligence built into nature itself. So it is not exactly a mind, like a human mind, that's designing it. So to dispel this notion that the eyes can never come about by itself, he begins with a simple organism. And the only thing that this organism can do is to figure out the difference between light and dark. That is to say, it's got receptors to illumination, sensors to when it's light or dark. And it's the crudest way to be able to tell daylight from nighttime. Then this scientist takes the reader in the book through a series of minor modifications, and it builds and builds and builds with increasing levels of sophistication until at last we arrive at the total design of the elegant and complex eye, the eyes that you and I have, the eyes that you and I know. So in making everyone go through this process, he's also pointing to creatures whose seeing apparatus are living examples of intermediate levels of complexity. You know, that they haven't completely evolved eyes like we have. They use it as sensory apparatus, but it's not that sophisticated. So that is the astonishing power of nature at work. It does not require that you have this all-powerful entity to design everything in nature. Nature by itself designs its living things in a sense through evolutionary pressures, survival of the fittest. So that is the reason why Dr. Dawkins calls nature and evolution the blind watchmaker, because there are also plenty of examples where you have evolutionary dead ends and you've got very bad designs. So none of these designs would survive even the merest human scrutiny. And there are some simple examples, even human beings themselves. We've got one tube for breathing, and we've got another tube for eating. So it's a very bad design for human beings that both tubes come together in the mouth, which means you can choke. So if you were an almighty deity designing human beings, you might have thought twice and separated the feeding tube from the breathing tube. That way, choking can never occur, and it doesn't interfere with anything. So it's not exactly true to call it an intelligent designer. It's more like a blind designer, propelled by forces and occasionally coming up with really bad designs. Sometimes the designs from nature are absolutely brilliant. Other times it's baffling. Sometimes designs inspired by nature and evolution just don't work. So they don't survive long, they don't get passed on, from one generation to the next, they soon become extinct. And yes, extinction is a real part of evolution as well. So the difference between Tao sages and intelligent designed proponents and the blind watchmaker, people who understand the blind watchmaker, the difference is that Tao sages do not claim to know who is responsible for the design. It's just the Tao. It's just the way of the universe to proceed through different forms, different levels of viability until it gets to something that works. So the position of the Tao sages is a lot closer to what you see here, to the ideas behind that the scientists will describe, like the evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, much closer to that than people who believe in intelligent design. So I wanted to compare and contrast. Now, as to where you fall in the spectrum between evolution and intelligent design, I leave that completely up to you. Not my job to tell you what's right and what's wrong. It's my job to open up this discussion and expose everyone to the different ideas, and then let everyone make up their own mind. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.